On behalf of Friedrich-Naumann Foundation for Freedom and Care, we would like to welcome you to our web talk today, a web talk dedicated to CARE's list of the 10 most underreported humanitarian crises 2021. And today is volume number 6, which is dedicated to Colombia. And as not all of us might be that familiar with Colombia, please let me give you some details on the country so we have an idea why there are so many humanitarian crises and challenges around Colombia has to address urgently. We're talking about a country of almost 52 million people. It is year 5 after the signature of the peace agreement between the Colombian government and the FARC-EP fighters. But still there is violence, there's insecurity around in Colombian society. We've got the presence of illegal drug trade still around. We've got violence, especially gender-based violence, we are going to address in the course of our talk. We've got murders and other challenges such as the huge flow of migrants and refugees coming from Venezuela trying to find a better life in Colombia. And obviously, the Colombian health and social system, which had been overwhelmed by COVID-19 already, had to face this flow of additional people coming to society. So there's a lot going on in Colombia, which could be labeled as a humanitarian challenge. And on top, we've got a next presidential election ahead at the end of this month, 29th of May. There's the first round of presidential elections, 2 strong contenders around, which puts a lot of additional insecurity on Colombian society. So in short, there is a whole plethora of topics we are going to address in the course of our web talk. We're looking forward. And obviously, the main question we are asking, why hasn't Colombia managed to get more media attention last year? It should have, and you're going to see why. Before I'm going to introduce our panelists to you, I would like to enter our 2 charts, CARE prepared for you to visualize a little bit what is going on in Colombia. You can see there's geographics and everything, but just, we're just looking at the Gender Inequality Index 2019, which gives an idea of that there is a topic we are going to address. It ranks 101 out of 162. It's not the bottom, but it is in the middle. And I'm sure our panelists are going to address this topic in the course of our discussion. We've got a second chart prepared for you. You can see 6.7 million people are dependent on humanitarian aid. Around 1.8 million Venezuelan refugees live in Colombia and are in dire need of attention. 2 out of 3 women have experienced abuse. So there is a toxic cocktail of challenges we are going to address in the course of our web talk. And now, as time is running, we only got 60 minutes. I'm going to introduce our panelists. We had expected 3 panelists for the time being. We're still waiting for 1, but for the time being, we are very happy to have the 2 already on board. And I'm going to start with Adriana Marcela Perez. She is the director of the Observatorio de Género del Norte de Santander, which is a research platform providing input to improve and prevent gender violence. So gender violence is a huge topic in our talk. Bienvenida, welcome, Adriana. Yeah.
Hi everyone. Hola a todos y todas. I'm Adriana Perez. I direct the Observatory. Yeah. This is a feminist organization dedicated to research and knowledge production here in Norte de Santander, which is the department right at the border between Colombia and Venezuela. So I'm very happy to be here, and hi everyone.
Hi, lovely. So we're going to start our discussion right away. And now I'm introducing Tobias Käufer. He is with us, actually currently in Germany, but normally he is a German journalist working in Latin America, based in Rio de Janeiro and Colombia, Bogota. So he's the man we are going to ask when it comes to everything Colombian in sort of politics and economics and humanitarian. So we're very happy, Mr. Käufer, to have you on board. Welcome.
Thank you for the invitation. Y hola a todas y todos.
Yeah, lovely. And I might want to add that obviously you're working for a huge array of German media. It is, for example, for a German audience, it is Zeit Online, it is Welt, Deutsche Welle. So you're working for them all, and you're covering the whole continent. So it is a sort of eagle-eye view you're giving us, and we are looking forward to get your insights on that. Thank you very much for being with us. And I just saw Catalina Vargas. Are you Catalina Vargas? Yes, you are. Happy to have you with us, because Catalina is representing CARE and is country director of CARE in Colombia. Catalina has worked as regional humanitarian manager for Latin America and the Caribbean, and has been working on aspects such as gender equality, with local partners and women organizations, promoting gender equity and reducing poverty because of this inequality. We're very happy to have you with us. Bienvenida, Catalina.
Thank you so much to everyone for this invitation. I'm really pleased to be part of this panel.
Lovely. Before we are starting our discussion, a last hint when it comes to a positive spin we would like to give to a humanitarian crisis, which is not easy, but it is in CARE's interest really to give us hope too, not only drawing a gloomy, dark picture of catastrophes and humanitarian challenges, but trying to give us hope and visions for the future. And this is pretty much the spirit of this discussion too. So lovely, we are complete, and I'm going to start with Catalina. Catalina, working for CARE in Colombia is a huge thing. I bet this is a 24/7 job. In your introduction, you on website, you are giving us an idea that CARE is following a gender-sensitive approach. What does it mean in terms of work lines? What are you doing exactly?
Thank you so much for that question. And definitely the gender approach is the core and the center of the work that we are doing, not only here in Colombia, but CARE as an international organization. And what is important to talk about gender is because we need to understand vulnerabilities for each population group to ensure that the response is considering all the elements. So we have a lot of organizations that are confirming the gender approach, but when we're going to see more in deep, it is not really integrated or mainstream as part, not only for the program approach, but also for example, for the group and team integration. What are the tools that we are using to assess the field when we are identifying the risk and vulnerabilities, and how we can ensure women participation and leadership on the program's design and the program's implementation. So the gender approach is at the center because we consider that just addressing inequality situation in the field, we can talk about poverty and in the field. So just to provide you an example, gender approach means that, for example, the teams are integrated equally for women and men when we are addressing gender-based violence in the field, or when we are talking about new masculinities, because gender approach also integrates men as an important actor on the transformation. We can not only work with women, but we also needs to integrate men if we want transforming structures and build agency among the communities. So it's a challenge because we are in an unequal country, but definitely starting from the field, build agency in the people, changing relationships at the community, and transforming the structures and more in a big picture.
Okay, thank you very much, Catalina. Adriana, I bet the gender approach is pretty much the core of your work too, right? You are representing, and I repeat, the Observatorio de Género de Norte de Santander. You have already started to introduce yourself, but could you give us an idea? What are you doing as the core of your work? What is it, what the Observatorio is doing to alleviate suffering?
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Brita. So the Observatorio de Asuntos de Género del Norte de Santander, or as it could be translated, the Observatory of Gender Issues of Norte de Santander, is a civil society organization dedicated to feminist research, to producing knowledge and to letting people and to produce knowledge and to get people to this knowledge about gender issues in the department. The observatory was created in 2019 as an organization dedicated to generate evidence of what is happening in the department with women and with LGBT people, both Colombian and Venezuelan, because before the observatory, there was no information. There was no information ready to the public. Public couldn't get information about what is happening in the department with women and with LGBT people. So we decided this also to promote the right to information, the right to knowledge, the right to data. And that is what we do. We generate documents about, for instance, security under gender perspective, about sexual and reproductive rights in the department, about human trafficking. And we get these documents to people, and we also send these documents to government and to international organizations in the department and in the country to generate evidence of what is happening. So that is what we do. We do research, we do publication of knowledge in order to alleviate suffering, in order to generate evidence of what is happening in a context where information is scarce. So that is very much what we do. We are a team of around 10 people now, mostly young people, which is also very important because the department has one of the highest rates of unemployment in the country. So the observatory is the opportunity for young people to generate also income and to work in a research knowledge and a research field, which is very underrepresented in the department.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we'll be excited to dive deeper when we in the course of our discussion. Thank you very much, Adriana. To those of you in the audience, if you would like to participate, you can do so. Please use the Q&A function. You can give us your questions, your thoughts, your comments in Spanish, English, or German, whatever you like. Please, we would love to have your comments and your insights too. Tobias Käufer, as a German journalist in Latin America, when we prepared this talk, you said, talking about humanitarian challenges, the flow of refugees coming from Venezuela is a huge topic. You were talking about 2 million people that had come to Colombia. Could you elaborate on that, please?
So, yeah, first of all, thank you for the invitation. Yes, the humanitarian challenge for Colombia is a very big one, and the future president of Colombia faces a major humanitarian challenges with the big migration from Venezuela to Colombia. And it will be important to promote the integration, the inclusion of almost 2 million refugees and migrants from Venezuela in Colombia. This is a huge mission and work which Colombia has so far managed to the best of its ability. I guess if you talk with representatives of different countries, most of all the countries said that Colombia, in this especially point of humanitarian work, have made a good job. But this is only one side of the medal, because there are still a large poor parts in the mega cities of Colombia, in Bogota and Cali, Medellin in the coast, Cartagena, and there are so many people in the rural areas who suffer from violence and paramilitaries and guerrilla groups. Yeah. And this makes it, this violence in these areas makes it nearly impossible to achieve a sustainable economic development in this area. So they have, the future government of Colombia have faced two big challenges. First one, 2 million refugees and migrants of Venezuela, which are in the country, which needs our help and the help of the Colombian people, and also the Colombian people who are living in the rural areas and in the poor parts of the cities, who also need our humanitarian and maybe also the political help of the rest of the world. Yeah. And last but not least, the price for all the violence in Colombia are paying the Afro-Colombian people and the indigenous people, and for example, in the Pacific coast. And they are, and this is another, maybe the third big problem which have to salute the next government of Colombia.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Käufer. Talking about vulnerable communities, I mean, it is the African descendant people, obviously, and we've got the indigenous people, but there are more vulnerable communities in Colombia. I guess CARE is attending to, right, Catalina?
That's true, Britta, because in Colombia, there are different crises ongoing and there are overlapping situations. So Tobias was talking about migration that has been definitely a big issue for the country in terms of response, because we are talking about an overwhelmed system already before the migration crisis, but we cannot forget and put outside the internal conflict. That is one of the major issues that is happening in the country and unfortunately increasing since the past 3 years. Unfortunately, after the peace agreements, we were having the hope that the crisis will be stained or at least reduced. But the situation right now is the numbers are increasing on more of 300% considering the 3 past years. So there are multiple illegal groups in the field that are harassing populations, that are confining populations, that are displacing people. And those are the same geographical areas where the Venezuelan migrants are arriving. So you have Colombian people and Venezuelan people being displaced, being harassed, being killed in the same geographical areas. So there are overlapping situations that definitely are deeply affecting the stability of the country. And on top of that, you have all the climate change impact and all the natural disasters that are part of that. So we have, with the rain and also with the dry situation in the north of the country in La Guajira, you can find the overlapping crisis in the same geographical area. So the situation is pretty critical, and as Tobias was mentioning, the new president will need to face that, because the situation is getting more difficult for those in rural areas that are getting less access to services, that are getting less visibility in terms of numbers, and because this is also important to mention, and it's the reason why the work that Adriana's and her role is doing is really important, because we have a lack of data, a lack of information. So the work at the observatory is doing right now, reflecting what are the gaps, what are the numbers. It's such an important work, because we need to create visibility and awareness about the situation, because we don't have at the moment official data on those areas. We have even the situation that we cannot name internal conflict as it is, because there is for sure different political positions around that, and it's important to take those kind of spaces to talk about it and create awareness about the situation.
Yeah, so huge work ahead. First questions are coming in. I'm taking the first one. Ramon Rey is asking, given the Caminantes crisis and their vulnerability crossing through Colombia, have you seen a particular bias towards Venezuelan women? And if so, in what way? Thank you very much, Ramon, for this question. I'm giving it to Adriana. Adriana, could you answer that one? Because I guess because of your geographical position in the north of Colombia, obviously you are right there, right? When Venezuelan people are entering Colombia.
Yeah, so the situation is critical with Venezuelan women. We have to remind the people and the public that even though the 3 international bridges that connect Venezuela with Norte de Santander are open right now for people crossing by foot, people walking the bridge and crossing to Colombia, there are still a lot of issues and barriers that especially Venezuelan women and Venezuelan LGBT people face when crossing the international bridges, especially regarding to violence from the Guardia Nacional from Venezuela, the National Guard from Venezuela, and from civil servants in Colombia on the Colombian side of the bridge, especially for LGBT people and trans women. So most of them are forced to cross by what would be considered as informal paths or tracks, what we call here in Colombia trochas, that are just pathways near the bridges, and they are facing very high rates of violence while crossing those informal or illegal, as the Colombian government says that those are illegal cross tracks to enter the country. Especially regarding Venezuelan women and bias that they could be facing, we have to remind the people that Venezuelan population are seen as potential criminals in the country. And there are a lot of issues regarding Venezuelan women because they are seen as reproducing criminality within the country. They are facing a lot of barriers regarding the fulfillment of their health and reproductive rights. For instance, if they are needing an abortion, they are being denied the abortion by the main hospitals in the region, in Norte de Santander. And that is one contradiction that we see here. So we see that they are labeled as reproductive criminality and reproductive violence, but when they want to access abortion or contraceptive methods, they are being denied that service by the main hospitals in the region. They are being denied the service under the excuse that they don't have the documents. They don't have the legal documents to stay within the country. However, we have to remember that that is a fundamental right and that the government has made many statements about that they don't need documents to access that service. Also, they have a lot of barriers to access employment and to get unemployment, a formal employment. So most of them works within the informal labor markets, or some of them also works within the illegal markets. But this is because they are facing many barriers accessing formal employment. There is also an issue regarding the attendance of victims of gender-based violence. When they get in touch with the state offices or police departments about suffering gender-based violence, they are being told that they cannot help them because, again, they don't have documents to provide, they are legally within the country. But again, the government has made different statements about that the legal status is not needed to protect victims of gender-based violence. In fact, many of them are not getting in touch now with state offices because they fear that they won't, not only they won't be helped, but they will also be threatened about being sent back to Venezuela, which is something that happens a lot.
Yeah, thank you very much, Adriana. So there's a lot of bias and stereotypes around, which certainly have to change in the course of the next years to alleviate the situation. We get that. Thank you, Adriana. Tobias, talking about Colombia from a European position and perspective, obviously drugs and corruption are topics we are familiar with. How would you judge the presence of drug cartels and the prosecution of drug delinquents in Colombia, and how toxic is corruption, and how viable is corruption in Colombia?
Well, from my point of view, this was, is, and will be the biggest problem of Colombia, is the power and the influence of the drug cartels and the organized crime, because they have ties and connections with the left-wing guerrilla and the right-wing paramilitary, and also the regular army. They have ties, connections to politics, to the justice system, to all parts of the society. And why we in Europe, as you mentioned, thinking about the drug problem in Colombia, the Colombian people and the people in USA and the people here in Germany, in the parties, in the clubs, using cocaine and financing with their consume of cocaine all this violence and this corrupt system. Yeah. And I guess that whoever will win the election, if it will be Petro or Gutierrez, no Colombian president have a realistic chance to change this if the rest of the world don't change the anti-drug policy. But this is only my personal point of view. And I think this corruption and the dirty money of the cocaine, and right now also of all kinds of bergbau, of illegal minery in Colombia, it's such a big amount of money that you can buy everything. You can buy all kinds of persons in the justice systems. You can buy politics in the left wing, in the center of all the sectors on all the parties who are existing. So I guess the big problem of Colombia, this kind of the drug problem, you can only find a solution if the rest of the world is helping Colombia and changing the point of view to think about it.
Yeah. So an important path still to go. Catalina, talking about corruption, how welcome is the work CARE is doing in Colombia? I mean, are you always being greeted with open arms when you're trying to educate? I mean, the different sectors you have to work with in terms of legal or bureaucratic paths. I mean, how welcome is the work you're offering to Colombian society?
Thank you, Britta. I think that it's important to remind the humanitarian principles that make us a legitimate organization in country, such as independence, and we are a political organization, ensuring that we are working with the people and for people. So that's important to remind, because for sure in this year with the national elections and the presidential election, there is a lot of risk for international organizations to take us as an instrument, as part of that political process. So we have been always clear about our neutrality and our independence in the field, and we are definitely working with local government, because it's important to ensure sustainability and even strengthen their capacities to avoid the barriers that Adriana was talking about in the previous question. And definitely they are always opening since we are including them as part of the process. So for example, we are providing technical trainings, online trainings. We are providing some support on infrastructure to ensure that if we are creating awareness about the services are open for the people. So the corruption is a sensitive issue, and it's important to go in deep with whom we are doing alliances, following up the agreements, being aware about the different situation, because it's a fluid context. So even the risk that today was not a risk, tomorrow could become a big one. So it's important to have local teams in the field that are reading the situation, analyzing the context, and always reacting if something came up, such as definitely Tobias was explaining with the different illegal groups in the field. You have different situations that were not expected the previous day. So it's important to ensure the humanitarian principles to guarantee our access to the communities, but also to be supported and linked with the local governments, involving them as part of the activities, ensure the transparency of what we are doing, and also accountability with the communities, to create legitimacy in the field.
Mm-hmm. So it's an important work ahead, and I mean, talking about these aspects, hopefully you get the feet on the ground, and we understand how important neutrality is when it comes to credibility of CARE's work on the field. You must not be associated to any governing political organism. I understand how tricky to maneuver and navigate through all these on a day-to-day basis, and I can tell from your body language, this is hard work. And I guess, Adriana, this is the work you're doing on a day-to-day basis too. I mean, I saw that you're not only dedicating your resources to everything migration is involving, but as well when it comes to financial autonomy and political participation of women, LGBT communities. So could you just give us an idea of these other important lines of work the Observatorio is doing?
Yeah, so the main line right now is about security regarding the occurrence of gender-based violence, security regarding human trafficking. But we also work on issues regarding political participation of women and LGBT people. Mm-hmm. We also work on issues regarding the protection of sexual and reproductive rights. Right now, we are undergoing a project, or we are carrying a project about strengthening female leaderships in Colombia and Venezuela with an specific component of sexual and reproductive rights. We also do work regarding economic autonomy. So that's basically what we do, or the lines of our work. We also work a lot on issues that may not seem feminist on the first hand, but that have a strong impact on women and LGBT people. So for instance, the aggravation of the armed conflict and the not fulfillment of a peace agreement with the FARC. And also we work on the agenda regarding a change on the perspective on the war on drugs, because we see that this international policy is having a very negative impact on women and LGBT people on the region. So we do work a lot on issues that may not seem at first hand as gender and feminist issues, like the armed conflict, like the war on drugs, and like also the absence of diplomatic relations with Venezuela and the impact of women and LGBT people on the department. And we are also having work with women on the Venezuelan side, especially with leaders, with female leaders, regarding the fulfillment of their rights, especially their health and reproductive rights right now.
Yeah, thank you very much, Adriana. Tobias, I would like to have your eagle eye view again, if possible. What would you say is the price the Colombian society is paying after years and years of drug wars, corruption, of this overwhelming feeling of insecurity and violence? What would you say is the price that Colombia as a society is paying?
Well, the price that people are paying is a lot of violence, especially against the poor people in the rural areas. Also, we have millions of people who had to leave their home or their region in Colombia and go to an uncertain future in the big cities and try to make a new start in one of the poor neighborhoods of Bogota and try to fight for a better life and to get a chance to have a better life. The people of Colombia are paying the price for this international drug problem. Yeah. And I guess, as I mentioned before, it's only possible to find a solution on an international way. And also, I think that of all Latin American countries, Colombia is the most difficult country for a government because you have this toxic mix, which is unique with paramilitaries, guerrillas, drug cartels, also migrants, 2 million migrants, then the special geographic situation of the country with the highest mountains and high mountains and the two oceans and this kind of things. So I think the people of Colombia are paying a very, very high price for this problem, and especially the human rights defenders and the activists who have the courage to stand up against left-wing or right-wing armed groups.
Okay, so it is the international community you are asking and imploring to step in and to support the next government when it comes to eradicating corruption and the presence of drug cartels?
No, I don't ask to support the next government. I ask to support another politic, especially a new anti-drug politic, which is necessary for Colombia, and this is completely independent who will be the next president of Colombia, because he will take over the problems from the anterior president from Ivan Duque, and now we have a new president. We don't know who it is, and he will have the same problem as Duque, and he have to find a solution. But it will not be possible without a change of this important part of international politics.
I get it.
My point of view.
Yeah, I get it. An important point of view. Thank you very much, Tobias. Catalina, in my introduction, I had said that obviously we would like to draw a positive picture too, a picture of hope and a picture of constructive going into the future. Can you give us ideas? And I know there's so much potential in your society. So where is your hope? Where do you find visions for better a future? Where is it?
Definitely, Britta. And just to complete on the Tobias answer, I think this crisis has also increased the resilience of the Colombian population. I think we are resilient to all these changes and situation, looking for that hope to continue and building the peace. I think that's something critical for us. I will say the hope and the positive on this situation is thinking in local and thinking in individuals that are in the field, in the rural areas, all the power on the woman leadership in the field, how they are changing the situation and their structure, being aware, building community and peace in those such a critical communities. So we have this program of women leading emergencies. that show us how the women are always having different ideas, you know, to get out of this situation of difficulty situation of poverty or harassment, looking for new opportunities for them and their children, looking for new initiatives to ensure their incomes, creating networks with the other women from different departments, creating those networks of hope, I will say, because definitely they are supporting them, you know, and creating those spaces to raise their voices, to feel supported. And I think that's incredible, amazing, and how it's changing. You know, this year we have had the approval for the voluntary interruption of pregnancy, and I think that's such as a hope element and milestone for the Colombian population. You know, and this has been a women process. So I definitely think that there is a lot of hope on the local initiatives. You know, young and adolescents are also part of that new ways of thinking, how they can use the art to express and to build society in their communities. And that's how we are also working as CARE, you know, working with local communities, with individuals, you know, strengthening their capacities, not to forget the structure and how we can influence policies and how we can influence those services to get access, but definitely focus on people, because that's where we can find the response and the hope to, you know, continue looking to change the situation and finding other exits for the young and adolescents that definitely are waiting for those opportunities.
Yeah, so younger generation in itself is obviously it is an element of hope, of constructive, of power. Yeah, but as well as you said, women and the power of women, of Colombian women, obviously is a source of inspiration for you. And I guess, Adriana, you couldn't agree more, right? That Colombian women obviously is a power in itself when it comes to renovation, of shifting away from corrupt structures. What's your take on that line of thinking?
Yeah, absolutely. We can see here in Norte de Santander that women and LGBT people are one of the most hit by and negatively impacted by international national policies. But we also see in them that there is a drive to change the context, to exert liberties and to exert agency, to change the local context, to create, I love what Catalina said about networks of hope. So I couldn't agree more with that. Also, I can say about young people are suffering many of the impacts of the armed conflict and of the migration context crisis, but they are also building here in Norte de Santander one of the strongest leaderships and many organizations dedicated to the protection of rights, to creating networks of hope. So I couldn't agree more with that.
Yeah, thank you very much, Adriana. Tobias, we've got a question directed towards you. I'm going to quote it. How do you think will the migration and COVID crisis affect the electoral outcome later this year? The person who's asked this is elaborating, saying literature tends to signal shifts towards the right side of the political spectrum when a migration crisis occurs. Have far-right groups benefited politically? And has Pedro capitalized the crisis in favor of the left? So, Tobias, a question going towards you.
I think that it's not the COVID crisis who will decide the elections, because we saw in 2019, I guess, a very big movement of social protests in Colombia. Then the pandemic comes and the big demonstrations end, but there is still a lot of potential or protest potential, especially among the young Colombian people, and the young Colombian people want to have a change, or part of the young Colombian people wants to have a change in Colombia, and I guess this could be more important for the result of the election than the corona pandemic. The other thing, the migration could be a factor because the migrants of Venezuela coming into a country which have their own economic problem, especially in the poor neighborhoods. And that means that could be a little bit of rivalry between the new people who are coming in and the other people who are living there. So it's a classic situation of rivalry in this area. So it could be a point which have an influence on the elections. But I guess the most important thing is that in between the Colombian society, there is a mixture of fear and hope. The one part of the Colombian people see in one candidate, which is Gustavo Petro, a person who can create hope and create a change, or can create chaos or a problem for the democracy. So there are two parts of the Colombian society. One part see Petro as a person of hope. The other part see him as a person of danger for democracy. Yeah. So everything is possible. It's very, very difficult to make to say what will happen on the end of May. I don't know.
Yeah, analysts are saying that it's very likely that there will be a second round of elections, right? You don't expect the first election round to be decisive one?
This is a 1 million peso question. I think that if you ask me today, I think Petro will have a very good result, but it will not be good enough to win the presidential election in the first round. But I think he can win it in the second round. But maybe with a not so big difference. But I think he's still, right now, today, 10 days before the, or 14 days before the election, everything is possible. But today, if you ask me today, I say that he have a good chance to win this election.
Okay, we take it like this. Thank you very much, Tobias. Time is running. There's only 10 minutes left, so let's come to our wrapping up session. Catalina, I would like to ask you. I mean, we are talking in the context of the 10 most underreported humanitarian crises 2021. What is your idea why Colombia couldn't capture the global media's attention more? I mean, now we know the plethora of challenges and problems you and your society are facing. Why on earth weren't media globally not interested more?
Thank you, Rita. I think there are, from my perspective, two elements to take in consideration. The two major crises in Colombia are slow onset. It means that are advancing slowly. So it's not such a natural disaster. You have a shock and you have the attention from the media and from the international community. Both of them, internal conflict and migration crisis, are slow. So are advancing and are, slowly advancing, but definitely hitting and impacting in the measured way the population. So that's the first thing. And the secondly, I think is also related to a political position. As I mentioned before, unfortunately, the governmental or political interest at not looking to create awareness about the situation, because that could be against their, their results or how they are presenting to the international community. So there is an interest also to don't get official data, to don't provide or invest in kind of research about the impacts or, creating awareness on that. And definitely it's affecting the situation for the country, because we are not getting enough, not only media attention, but I think international one. And just to provide a data, we just have the HRP, or the humanitarian response plan for this year, that is confirming that we have at least 7.7 million of people in need. that is not neglectable. I mean, it's a huge number that is showing up that at least this number of population is being affected in different ways. And when you go in deep, you can see the differentiate where and how. But once more, we need to have more investment to get official data. Those are investments from different people, but not recognized from the government. And definitely that also it's important to mention. Third element, we start to be part of the OCDI as a country of that big international platform where we are not supposed to have those critical elements. Why we are part of that? Because of the average of indicators. We are one of the most unequal countries in the region, but it doesn't mean that we are in a good position. Just when you make the average, we can enter to those kind of platforms. Just to mention that the indicators from outside could show a different situation, but when you came here and you see the situation from the local communities, you can see there are extreme poverty, and that's the major piece of population in country.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you very much, Catalina. Adriana, as Catalina was saying, the lack of data, official data, might be one explanation why the media on a national or international scale hasn't really captured the Colombian crisis. I mean, this is your business, providing data, right? How receptive are the governing bodies when it comes to the data you're providing on gender-based violence, for example?
Well, in most cases, the governing bodies here in Norte de Santander are very receptive about the information we provide. Yeah. There are some cases when tensions arises because they see our work as if we were conflicting with them. But what we do is to evaluate how their policies, how their strategies are working. So we have to also work with the government, telling them we are not here confronting you. We are not the enemies. We are not your enemies. We are only providing data to evaluate the impact of your programs. But in most cases, they are very receptive. Also, international organizations in the territory are very receptive to the information and data we provide. However, regarding the government, they can be very receptive, but what we need is that there is more money placed in the programs to protect women and LGBT people, and we can see a gap there. They are saying that's wonderful, that is great, but what we need is, okay, is there going to be a change in programs, a change in policies to ensure the protection of rights? And what we see is that the receptiveness is not translated into making better policies for women, for LGBT people, and for migrants in this context. However, we can say we do have a close relations with several offices of government and several committees, like the Committee for Prevention of Human Trafficking and the Committee for Prevention of Gender-Based Violence, who are constantly inviting us to share our data. But again, as I said, we need to see that receptiveness transform into policy making, into funding policies to prevent violence, to prevent trafficking, and to ensure human rights for women and LGBT. And so far, we are not seeing that. Mm-hmm. We are only seeing that is made into words, but not into policies as we need. However, we still work closely with the government because we know that our information has to influence policy making and has to influence government offices. So this is an ongoing effort for us.
Yeah, and where we decided to see who is the winner of these elections, and to see if you can broaden up the avenues of your influential work when it comes to providing data and trying to educate and change Colombian society. We are almost in the final 5 minutes. Tobias, I would like to ask you, give us your final thoughts on the situation in Colombia. What is it? What are your hopes? What are your expectations when it comes to these elections, and most importantly, the post-election time? Because we know this is always crucial. When the new guys are starting, everything will be replaced and people are off or corruption will be prevented. What are your thoughts on these particular strategic times, in challenging times in Colombia?
Well, I think the biggest problem for the winner of the election will be to keep all the promises he made in the last weeks and months. If you listen to all of the candidates, especially the one who have the best chances to win, they make a lot of promises, and if they don't deliver, we have in a few months maybe the next wave of protests in Colombia, because the people are not happy with a new government. So I don't think that we are, or the problems of Colombia are so big that and so deep that it cannot be find a solution in between a few weeks or a few months.
Yeah.
But the most important thing for the new president have to be honest